Indian and US officials are sitting down for 3 days of high-stakes trade talks in New Delhi. The timing is crucial, with the US president set to impose new tariffs next week, although Donald Trump has hinted at possible exemptions. One focus of these talks is market access. Washington is pressing New Delhi to lower high tariff barriers across all American goods, while India is reportedly open to cutting duties on more than half of its imports from the United States, worth $23 billion. In return, the US may offer trade concessions, including quota mechanisms to protect Indian farmers and small industries. New Delhi has already taken some goodwill measures, such as slashing tariffs on motorcycles and bourbon whisky. But India also working to shore up its ties elsewhere, as Mr. Trump's tariff threats test global relationships on trade. New Delhi now looking to de-escalate tensions with Canada, with both sides reportedly considering redeploying envoys after a diplomatic fallout last year. Relations soured under former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau after he accused Indian officials of orchestrating the assassination of a prominent Sikh activist, a claim that India has denied. Canadian officials looking to new Prime Minister Mark Carney as a chance to reset ties. Neha Poonia joins us live from New Delhi. Neha, we have seen in the last few days and weeks, in fact, the contours of New Delhi's strategy amidst these threats of tariffs. How flexible can India afford to be when it comes to placating anyone trying to impose tariffs on New Delhi?
Well, the message, beg your pardon, the message from New Delhi from the very beginning, ever since President Trump won that election and walked into the White House, has been that India understands this is an important issue for his administration and that New Delhi is willing to play ball and do whatever it can to address those concerns. This is despite criticism from the opposition, who've repeatedly accused New Delhi of trying to sell Indian interests to appease President Trump. But in this case, these talks, which are officially discussing the first tranche of what will be an extensive bilateral trade agreement due to be signed by the end of the year, there's also the potential that exemptions from reciprocal taxes will also be discussed. Those taxes will be imposed next week, and studies have shown that India could, face billions of dollars in losses. This is something that could hurt 80% of its exports to the US. So there's a certain urgency to show that willingness to meet the US halfway. Of course, the demand from the American side has been to cut tariffs across the board and not proceed in a piecemeal fashion, which is what India seems to be leaning towards. Also, historically, India has been a very slow trade negotiator, but in this instance, it's of course put the foot down on the gas pedal, or so to speak. We're being told that there are two aspects that India is potentially considering. One would be prioritizing access for those goods that Indian manufacturers do not make. So that's a good way, experts say, to protect the local industry and also, put in some safeguards for key and critical sectors. The other aspect is, of course, introducing quotas into this trade deal conversation. India has done this with the UAE and Australia in the past, where it's instituted limits on the volume of exports in certain categories, but within those limits, it's then reduced tariffs as well. So it's hoping this will go a long way in appeasing President Trump, but there are concerns this might not be enough, and that the US officials and the team here will push for even more concessions.
All right, Neha, New Delhi might be aware that these might, as you suggest, might not be enough, certainly making efforts elsewhere. With other potential trade partners, we saw a warming of trade ties with the UK and even at this point, even with Canada. That's despite difficulties, as we mentioned before we crossed to you, a diplomatic fallout last year.
Absolutely. I mean, India's shown this certain, sense of urgency in not just holding trade talks with the US, like I was telling you, but also with other Western allies. And one country that India is hoping to also mend ties with is Canada. Now, this is despite the fact that the last 2 years have been dominated by a very public and an ugly diplomatic spat that has to do with allegations over the involvement of Indian agents in the assassination of a prominent Sikh separatist activist on Canadian soil, beg your your pardon, something that India has outrightly dismissed as absurd. And many in India have blamed Justin Trudeau for this dip in bilateral ties. And, this was a blip because historically India and Canada have enjoyed very cordial ties. There's a very big Indian diaspora that lives in Canada, and people-to-people ties are very strong. But with Mark Carney's, entry, India is hoping that he and Modi can meet at the sidelines of the G7. There's also talk of bringing envoys back. But of course, all of this is taking place against the backdrop of concerns over the Sikh separatist movement in Canada, which India still insists is a problem.
Thanks. Neha Poonia there reporting live from New Delhi.